Well, let's begin this hour with the latest from that video that's gone viral around the world, which shows several Marines urinating on the bodies of militants in Afghanistan. If you haven't seen it, here it is again. Now, to be honest, folks, we thought we had said enough about this video, that we'd move on from the story today. But we've discovered there's actually an entirely other story here. It turns out there is a massive level of support by Americans for what you're seeing going on right here. I'm not talking about supporting the troops. I'm talking about the support of their actions, of urinating on dead bodies here. Well, okay, it should come as no surprise that one of those people in support of it is Pamela Geller, the woman who made a name for herself, speaking out loudly and vehemently against the proposal to build an Islamic center a few blocks away from where the World Trade Center attacks took place. She issued a statement, and here's what she said. So let me be perfectly clear. I do love those Marines. We are at war with an enemy that means to slaughter us and overthrow the United States of America. I don't care that these Marines wee-weed on murderous savages. And you see there, care spelled, she spelled like that, as a knock on the Council on American Islamic Relations. All right, so again, though, it turns out this is not a radical fringe opinion. In the coverage that we've done of this incident, we've gotten hundreds of comments, and I want to read you just a few. Here we have Mr. Poundtown 21 writes, "Why is this a big deal? I'd piss on them if they took the lives of my fellow brother friend." Then we have Joker KDD1. "Everyone is whining about this. Did we forget? These are the types of people who came and attacked us on our soil. These are people who, in the beginning of the war, were cutting off heads of civilians and others from our ally countries. It's a little pissa they'll live not like the lives they took or helped take." And Dietrich67 says, "It seems a lot less offensive than cutting someone's head off. The only mistake I see here is the video. That part is dumb." Well, in our non-scientific count, about a third of the comments that came into our website sounded kind of like this. But I do want to show you, it's important to show that we had quite a few comments on the other side as well. So here's a few. T-State7172 wrote, quote, "As a vet who served 2 tours there and 4 in Iraq, all I have to say is grow up, troop. We were trained better." For those who support that, either didn't serve or did a college tour in the service, which all of you are a joke. I'm now a disabled vet with over 17 years in, but I would never condone that. Joanna, with too many sevens in front of her name, says, "Shame on the USA. This proves they are not civilized." And finally, Quack18 says, "And the Americans wonder why people around the world hate them." I think all of these are food for thought here. And I think it's important to talk about this as a separate story. So I want to bring in journalist Abby Martin, who founded MediaRoots.org. She's in San Francisco. Hey there, Abby. What do you think is the story we should glean from this, that so many Americans seem not to think that there's anything wrong with what's going on in this video?
Well, touching upon what you just said about the corporate press, I mean, what else can you really expect from a top-down managed news run by corporations? So, of course, they're going to condone this type of horrendous, despicable behavior from the military because they're funded by the military-industrial complex. And, you know, in terms of American citizens, they're watching the corporate press, so they think that these wars are justified. So it's really... I understand their position, but it's disgusting. It's a completely despicable act. What's shocking to me is the outrage. You know, once there's a YouTube video that's viral that shows this despicable kind of things going on at war, then people get outraged. Where's the outrage of the fact that we're still over in Afghanistan killing thousands of people?
I think that is such an important point because when you think about these incidents, it's unfortunate that it was on camera, but the fact is stuff like this probably happens a lot more that's not caught on video. And I do want to say, I mean, you say the mainstream media has condoned this. A lot of hosts and pundits have actually expressed outrage, but they haven't, as you said, expressed outrage that this war is even still going on. So I want to talk about this because I want to point to it as a larger issue. I mean, the media is treating this like a single scandal, and that's why it's a story. Why do you think that this is the only time that the media sort of makes this the story when there's a scandal involved?
Well, if it bleeds, it leads. You look back at the poll in 2010, 92% of Afghanis that were polled didn't even know what 9/11 was. So these people, you're talking about goat herders. We're not even really in a war. When you hear the false equivalency that people say, oh, well, they beheaded the soldiers, et cetera, et cetera. This isn't a war zone. People have to understand that we're not fighting a standing army. This isn't World War II. This isn't Vietnam. These are goat herders, and yeah, they're insurgents over there, people who are armed. There's no way to tell who's part of the fighters, who's not. So yeah, the whole thing is completely, it's not a battlefield, and it's just soldiers, I think, have an extreme cognitive dissonance based on video games. There's a weird detachment. We saw with the Reuters video, obliterating people, bombing wedding parties, villages. It's a very strange combat that we're fighting where it's completely detached from reality.
I think that's a really, really good point. A lot of these soldiers and Marines, it's almost like they have to detach themselves from reality to be able to deal with what their government is sending them to do on a day-to-day basis. Abby, I want to talk about another aspect of this story, though. Among those in favor of the actions by the Marines, CNN contributor Dana Loesch. She said this on her radio show.
Can someone explain to me if there's supposed to be a scandal that someone pees on the corpse of a Taliban fighter? Someone who was is part of an organization murdered over 3,000 Americans? I'd drop trow and do it too. That's me, though.
All right, so Dana has this radio show, and, you know, she's certainly allowed to say whatever she wants on her radio show. It's her show. She's also one of the co-founders of the St. Louis branch of the Tea Party. But she is also a paid contributor of the network that calls itself the most trusted name in news, CNN. This is the same network, by the way, that fired Rick Sanchez for comments on a radio show where he called Jon Stewart a bigot, and also Octavia Nasser, who tweeted that she was sad to hear of the passing of a grand Ayatollah who was affiliated with Hezbollah. All right, Abby, so I guess I want to ask you what you think about this. I mean, do you think there's a little bit of a conflict of interest here?
Oh, yeah. And look at the double standard just in the corporate press. Michael Moore on the Oscars saying, shame on you for this illegal war, got booed. Bill Maher saying they were brave, the suicide bombers, because of taking their own lives. He got, you know, his show got taken down. And then you have a CNN correspondent going out there and basically vehemently saying hate speech about desecrating dead Afghanis and condoning urinating on corpses. I mean, this is outrageous. But yeah, it's the complete double standard of what we see, condemning things that are completely truthful, like the war is illegal and it should, you know, it should never have happened, and then allowing and condoning these sort of hateful comments. It's very telling.
And we should put up what CNN said in response. They issued a statement saying, you know, CNN contributors are commentators who express a wide range of viewpoints on and off of CNN that often provoke strong agreement or disagreement. CNN also says their viewpoints are their own. So it seems to me that the network is sort of defending what this paid contributor said on the radio show.
Yeah, I mean, they're not taking any initiative to really you know, do anything about the fact that she's out there saying that it's okay to urinate on corpses of Afghanis. I mean, look at her premise, though, that this is part of an organization who killed 3,000 American citizens. No, it's not. Just because bin Laden was from Afghanistan, the hijackers were all from Saudi Arabia. I mean, it's complete and total ignorance in the premise. So it's just hard to even take seriously. And the fact that CNN's just saying, oh, well, commentators have their own opinions. Well, that's why the corporate news is becoming irrelevant, because we can't even, I mean, you can't even take them seriously.
I think it's an interesting point. Abby, what do you expect looking ahead? I mean, what do you think all Americans should be concerned about regarding the mainstream media? I mean, here we have a year in which there's a presidential election. You know, Americans will go to the polls in November to either re-elect Obama or, you know, put somebody new in the White House. What is the media? What's going on here with the media? It seems to me we just keep hearing more and more opinion-based news, and not as many, you know, calling people out, whether it's candidates or people who are spewing things that are blatantly not true on the air.
Yeah, I think it's just a matter of what we're saying right now. Turning to stations like your own, RT Television, Project Censored, Media Roots. We need to start turning away from corporate media. It's completely controlled from the top down. It's run by the military-industrial complex. It's run by Monsanto. All of these weapons manufacturers have a vested interest in drafting foreign policy recommendations, and they're also sitting on boards of directors of people who are media conglomerates. So it's really just realizing who's behind the message and why it's filtered down like that, and why it's all opinion-based, and why it's complete dog and pony show, election coverage, et cetera, and not covering these real issues. So the wars are illegal, they need to end. So it's really just making media relevant.
I think, Abby, you'd be surprised, and a lot of people would be surprised, how few people in this country actually realize that. Journalist and founder of MediaRoots.org, Abby Martin, in San Francisco.